This happened to me around a year or so ago. I have lifelong nightmares that gave me a kind of a horror fetish. My coworker tells me that he did not get much sleep. He says the voices were keeping him up. I ask him if he means that his family were being shit and staying up late and making too much noise. I know that he has a big family and that they are all crowded in a tiny little house, but he tells me no. He says it was more than that. I keep pressing him to tell me exactly what it was. He says that there is some kind of entity or monster that lives in his room. I think he's just screwing with me, but he is completely serious. He has no smile across his face, so I demand more information from him. He claims that his room in his house, that it's haunted. Specifically, it's centered around his closet. He tells me that at night he hears voices, and they sound clear enough like they're talking to him. He says he suspects it's a succubus because it seems to be a female. This thing apparently harassed his girlfriend, and he felt pressure on his chest before. Fast forward about a week after him telling me this. There is a party at his house, so I am there. We start talking about ghost stories. I ask him about the closet again. He reiterates that it is haunted. His friends even back him up. I tell him that I brought my rosary with me. I carry it everywhere. I tell him, let's do an impromptu exorcism. He decides, sure, why not? He opens up the closet. It just looks like a normal one. He explains to me that every time it's been broken, whoever broke it ends up breaking a lip somewhere down the line. His friends also back him up there. Whatever. I start praying the rosary. I don't feel anything. My coworker starts freaking out. He tells me that he's feeling some kind of bad energy. All things considered, according to exorcists, that means his house is haunted by demons, alright. He says that we should stop. He tries to close the closet door. It stays stuck open. He says that he cannot sleep when it's open. He slams himself against it and tries to force it closed. It breaks. He starts freaking the hell out. Eventually, after a few minutes, his friends and I fix the closet door. He starts to calm down. We have some drinks after that. He says that his house was built on native land or something. I tell him he should honestly get a priest if it's that bad. Still, I didn't feel anything personally myself. I get my car. I say a prayer to Saint Benedict beforehand, just in case. I start my car and begin to drive off. It is pitch black outside, and pretty close to the desert. I live in SoCal. I turn on my radio. It's just some ungodly noise. It's set to the classical station. I listen to that normally, but this is just some insane shit. It sounds like a combination of howling and instruments being played in slow motion. The other stations are just static. It sounds vaguely tribal. I am kind of really spooked out at this point. I look at my GPS because the freeway that I'm on, it seems unfamiliar to me. It tells me to do a U-turn in the middle of the freeway. Weird. I get off at the next exit. I try to follow its new instructions. It leads me straight back to my coworker's house. I check to make sure my address is correct in my GPS. It should be leading me back to my house. I try it again. I start driving. Pitch black outside. Still no other cars on the road. I try the radio again. It's been quite a few minutes now. Maybe whatever has happened, interfering with the signal, has been fixed and sorted itself out. There is still a horrifying, ungodly sound on the classical station. I look at the GPS. It's telling me to take a hard right on the damn freeway, literally into a wall. Then it changes and tells me to go back again. I am really spooked now. I eventually turn off the GPS. I look at the sign. I decide it's better to drive to fucking Los Angeles, which I'm familiar with, so I can find the roads that I'm used to and get back home, rather than trusting this stupid thing. Music seems louder. kinda reminiscent of a stampede coming towards you now. I mutter a few Ave Marias under my breath. My phone's GPS turns on again. I could have sworn it just says, "turn around" in that text-to-speech voice. I say screw it. I shove my phone into my pocket. I pull over to the side of the freeway. I open up the glove box. I remove my Eurobeat CD. I shove it into my CD player. Gas, gas, gas starts playing. I take advantage of the empty freeways to slam my foot on the gas. I roll down the windows. There is cool night air rushing through my hair. I yell as loud as I can, "Fuck you, demon fucking slut." The entire car ride is me switching between swearing out at a demon and then muttering prayers that I know. I pull to the side of the road. I make the sign of the cross one last time. I ask God for protection and say the prayer to St. Michael, the Archangel. I finally say aloud that if some demon follows me home, I will not stop screwing with her. I'm talking spritzing holy water everywhere and constant prayers of the rosary. I also remember what exorcists say about demons. I say that she's just a coward who can only act with God's permission, and he can withdraw it at any time, that she has already failed. I say, leave and never bother me or my friend again. I take out the CD. I turn to classical. It's back to classical music. All of the other stations are working too. I sleep soundly that night. I find out days later, my friend managed to get most of the activity to stop by threatening the demon that he would burn down his house just to spite her if she kept it up. All in all, it went well. I was born in 1980. My mom was a housewife, and my dad was a firefighter. I was their only son. Naturally, I grew up looking at my father as a hero. Although when I got older, I started understanding more about his work. Knowing that he could just not come back at any point, I ended up respecting the man even more. He was very good at woodworking, and he would ask my help to make wooden furniture at the workshop. I was 13 years old when I said to him that I would like to become a firefighter too. I still remember the look on his face when I said it. He was very happy, but at the same time, he was very worried. We lived in a mid-sized town, so the job was rough sometimes. From then on, my dad started a physical training routine on me. It started easy, with just some exercises. Around 2 to 3 years later, I started going to the gym. Some other things I still remember about my dad was the musical taste. He used to listen to a lot of rock, and his favorite song was Smoke on the Water from Deep Purple. It was normal listening to him humming the song around the house. Even when he was in his old Chevy, that was the go-to song every single time. From listening to it from a very early age, I got a profound distaste for that song. When I got out from high school, I joined the Fire Academy. While I was in the middle of training, my dad retired. That was a relief for my mom and me. He had problems with his back, and he was starting to really feel the pain. From then on, I started my career as a firefighter. 4 cases really marked my career. The first case, it was when I saw my first bloody mess. Me and the others that were in training were taken to the scene of a car crash. We would help in the removal of a body from the crash. I had seen a dead body before, but nothing could prepare me for something like that. A man had slept at the wheel in a highway near the town and collided with a massive truck that was stopped. The car literally got underneath the truck, and the cargo container got most of the top part of the car. The car itself was not recognizable at all. I could see blood dripping from that twisted metal thing. As we got closer, one of my friends that just threw up. I gagged but managed to keep my posture. The poor man was completely destroyed. His head was crushed by the cargo truck, and with the force of the impact it opened, so most of his brain was visible and scattered all around what was left of the seat. One of his eyes was hanging from what was left of his face. They had brought us there to see the thing with our own eyes. Then they made us stay on the side of the road, diverting the traffic while they worked on the body removal. That day I arrived home, visibly shaken. My mom and dad observed me as I got home and slowly walked into my room. As I got into my room, I sat at my bed. Someone knocks at my door. It was my dad. I tell him to come inside, and he closes the door behind him. He sits at a chair, and he calmly asks me what had I seen. I described it as best as I could in the state that I was in. My dad then starts telling me some of his stories of working over 40 years as a firefighter, mostly of bodies in various states and or stages of decomposition. Some of them horrified me, but he would tell them in a calm and stable way. I finally asked him if there was any way of not getting shocked over that. He looked at me and said, "You never get used to it." He then kept looking at me. At the time, I did not figure it out, but on a later date, I would find out that he was making sure if that was what I wanted. He finally stood up and left. The second case, that was of a bushfire in the outskirts of the city. In the months of June and July, almost the entirety of the vegetation dries out. That makes it really easy for wildfires to spread and consume large areas really fast. Sometimes the fire is so intense that we can only delay it for a bit. That means that we have to help evacuate the areas where the fire may hit, and sometimes survey burnt areas in search of bodies. Keep in mind that at this time, I was around 3 years in the fire department. I was still living with my mom and dad, although now I had a girlfriend and was thinking about moving in with her. So, on that day, a strong wind combined with the dry lands made the fire cover a very large area in a small amount of time. Some of the firemen were at the front, evacuating anything that might contain a human being. Another group was fighting the flames, trying really hard to at least delay or control the flames. I was with the other group, surveying some of the area that was swept by the fire during the night. Everything was burned, and we were in pairs looking for any signal of life at all. The land was really smoky, and we only had some yards of visibility. We then spotted a burnt house. It looked like a farmhouse, and it was completely burnt down, so there was no roof. My friend and I entered the house ruins and looked around. There was no sign of anything alive there. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow moving around the corridor of the house. I turned around and there was nothing there. I very quickly yelled, "Hello? Is someone there?" My friend looked at me. We both made it out from the ruins of the house and started looking outside in the smoke. We were not seeing anything, but then I spotted some movement. My heart skipped a beat when I realized what I was looking at. A man in a blue shirt and black pants. The problem was, all of his clothes were a bit torn, and he was slowly limping in the fog. He had various wounds and burning marks. Some of them seemed to have an orange glow to them, almost as if he was still on fire. Various black markings also had that glow. He passed some yards away from us, slowly limping into the fog again. My coworker and I were horrified by that. I thought about calling out for the dude, but I knew that it wasn't something natural. When I looked at my friend, he was making a silent sign for me. He then started slowly walking in the direction that the thing went. At this point, I was shitting myself, but I followed along. We could hear the man slowly walking in front of us, and sometimes we could even see his outline in the smoke. Suddenly, he disappeared behind a tree. My friend and I stopped and just stared at each other. We then went to look behind the tree. There was no sign of the man, but on the ground there was a completely burnt human body. No signs of clothes or anything, just the now shrunken body of a human being. Later on, I asked my friend what we had seen, and he just stood there, quietly. I also asked for one other member of the team, and he also did not answer. When I got home, once again, my dad went to talk to me. He started by asking what was wrong. I told him everything we had seen that day. He closed his eyes and said, "Sometimes people really want to be found." It was then that I got confirmation that what I had seen that day, it wasn't from this world. Then he said, "Don't go speaking about that around other people. They might start questioning your sanity." The third case had happened a few months later. There was this 2-story house that caught fire. The department was called and we were there really fast. The thing about being a firefighter is the massive responsibility that is on your shoulders. When people are trapped and hear those sirens, they think that everything is going to be okay. But it isn't going to be okay. The fire truck is only the beginning. That particular day, the lower floor was completely on fire. They said that an old lady was trapped in the upper floor. We moved the platform from the truck to the second floor, and I went inside. The flames were not as aggressive at the second floor, but there was a lot of smoke around. The temperature was high too, so as soon as I got in, I started calling for the old lady. I started looking around until I spotted a shadow in the smoke. It was at the doorway of a room. It was a dark spot on the smoke, illuminated by the flames, almost as if someone was covering himself with a sheet. I called for the lady again, going in the direction of the shadow. As soon as I got around 5 feet away, the shadow just disappeared into thin air. I was startled for a little while, but I kept going forward. When I got to the room that the shadow was in the doorway, I looked around. It was a bedroom, and the old lady was passed out on her bed, surrounded by flames. I got her and got her out. The woman was very lucky to be alive. When I got home, my mom and my dad were waiting on me. They were very happy. They knew about the fire and they knew about what I did. One of my dad's colleagues had called them to tell. So that night we sat and we had dinner. Later on, I told my dad again about what I had seen. He stared at me for a moment and then said, "Well, you got there first. Before him." I asked what he was talking about. He then said that many people in the fire department, they see that thing. They don't know what it is, but people see it in situations where people are almost dying. It's like a smoke mass, is what my dad called it, and I confirmed. The fourth case, this happened way later. At that point, a few years had passed by, and I had moved out with my now wife. I had a son now, and I was happier than ever. That was until the winter of 2008. My dad had a heart attack and he passed away. He wasn't that old, but since he retired, he had gotten a lot fatter. Despite that, it was a shock for my mom and me. At any rate, life went on. The next year, I was working like I never did before. Days would go by fast, and I had a family to provide for. That made me a lot more cautious. So, there was this big recycling plant next to the city. It was deactivated, so homeless people would live there from time to time. That day, we got a call telling us that it was on fire and that there were many people inside. All the trash that the plant deactivation left behind was like a hellish fuel for the flames. We went there with 3 fire trucks. When we got there were many people outside. The flames were high, and we could hear things breaking inside. They said that there was a 4-year-old trapped on the 3rd floor of one of the sectors. As we got closer, we could see that because of the electrical wires, we could not approach with the platform. The only way in was through the 2nd floor, in the place where the platform could barely reach. I got inside, and I could hear my coworkers blasting water at the structure from the outside. Normally, someone would go with me, but there was a fire in other areas of the compound, so everyone had their hands full. Everything was just full of smoke, and there was a lot of fire. I ran to the nearest staircase that I could find, and quickly made it to the 3rd floor. As I got there, I started yelling for the kid to try and find him, hoping he would call back. Then I heard a scream coming from one of the rooms. I quickly made my way to that room. It was a room made out of wooden prefabs, and they were all on fire. As soon as I got to the room, I saw a kid, crying and sitting at the corner of the room. I went to the boy and rolled the anti-flame sheet around him. I then put him on my shoulders and just started running. I went to the stairs, but they had just collapsed. The flames were now getting really strong. And for the first time, I thought to myself, I might die here if I don't make it outside. I started looking around to see if I could find anything. The fire and the smoke made it hard to see anything. After looking, I found what appeared to be a window. I then got the radio and warned the crew that I would have to jump off. It was a big, metallic window, the type that slides to the side to open. I told them the description of the window and the overall direction of where I was. They started preparing the air mattress under 2 of the windows since they could not know in which one I was. Then I started forcing the window for opening. The heat made the metal expand and the window would not open. I could feel the heat rising up, and I sat the kid on the floor so I could put in more effort. No matter how hard I pushed, the window would not open at all. The kid started screaming when a large piece of wood fell down near us. Now the heat was unbearable, and the kid was just screaming. I took out my jacket uniform and rolled it around the kid. When I went back to the window, I was not feeling the pain or the heat anymore. All I was doing was just focusing on the window, trying to open that damn window. I started feeling a little bit lightheaded. I closed my eyes. The first thing that comes to my mind is a humming of a song, Smoke on the Water, like my dad used to hum all the time. I opened up my eyes. One last push. With a loud clang, the window opens. I take the kid as fast as I can and climb the window. As I look down, I see through the smoke and the flames there is a big yellow target. I jumped, turning my back to the ground and making the kid fall on top of me. We landed safely on the mattress. As we landed, other firemen took the kid, and I was taken immediately to the hospital. I got over 50% of my body completely burnt. One thing I will never forget is when I finally got to the hospital. To remove the dead and the burnt skin, they would use water and sponges for scraping. Even though they had me under painkillers, I would scream and scream, just wishing I was dead and that the pain would stop. I would pass out sometimes, and the whole time I could hear that humming, the voice of my dad humming Smoke on the Water. I believe that he spent the whole ordeal by my side, just cheering for me, making sure that I made it out okay. I finally got back to work after a long time, but I'm in management and inspection now. For context, I am Russian, and when this happened to me, I was living in a really rural area. This was the late 1990s to the early 2000s. I was between 15 and 20 years of age. The house that we live in, it's in the middle of nowhere. I'm not sure what you would call it in English, but it's like a large field surrounded by woods in a circle. Not really a farm, but it did have lots of space. We did have a few pigs and some garden patches, mostly just weeds though. Now, we were around a 20-minute walk away from any other houses. It was all farmland, with big spaces of state-owned land in between. Nothing really there. Had to drive about half an hour just to get to town. It was very remote and pretty lonely. This is Russia, after all. There is not a lot of sun. Most days are overcast and gray. Unless it's the middle of the summer, there are very few birds. No squirrels even, nothing. In the winter, when it snows, everything is covered. It's very surreal being outside or alone. Actually, it is very strange being alone inside as well. Everything is silent. So silent, you get accustomed to that buzzing sound that makes you notice the silence. It just goes away. This is what we call true silent or dead silent. My grandma told me once, it means that the land that you are on is given to the dead. Still, we live there because it is much cheaper than living in the city, and my father worked as a laborer / handyman sort of guy, which is needed more in the country. I have a few stories I could tell from the time I lived there, if anyone is interested. It isn't exactly the outback, but it's still pretty remote. Okay, so the first story that comes to mind. A lot of people do not know, but Russia has lots of wild dogs. Not like wolves, but just packs of domestic dogs that run together and run around so much. They are all just big mutts. They can be very dangerous, especially towards children. There was one patch of woods that we knew we were not supposed to go to because of these dogs. A large pack hung around the spot, which was between our homes and the neighbors, all wooded on the eastern side of the property. One day, my neighbor's child disappeared. They call us up, and me, my father, and my brother start from our end of the woods and go towards there, so we can search, and both families would meet in the middle. We are heading for the field. My father has a hunting rifle. I have a rabbit gun. My brother is too young for guns, but he picked up a big stick. We are all very nervous of this area. We enter into the woods. My father tells us to walk slow and keep a watchful eye. We see a few dogs running around. They are circling us. Most of the time, wild dogs are wary of groups, so we keep in a tight circle. Getting closer, we begin to hear our neighbors crashing around. They were much louder than us. I don't think they hunted or really knew how to hunt. We come to a smaller grove. There is a dried out stump of fallen tree in the middle. I can smell the scent of pure shit and iron in the air. I notice blood and scraps of clothes around the ground. I come to the middle. I see an animal carcass. It has no fur. It has long blonde hair. It is a child, dead. The dogs had dragged her here and tore her up. Most of her was gone. It was hard to recognize her as a person at all. They had eaten her, or most of her. The dogs are circling all around us. We are in their territory, near their food. Father is pissed. He shoots at them. They run off. The neighbors are in tears. The mother is holding what is left of her. Blood is all over her clothes, and her body is just sort of coming apart. The father of the girl finally convinces the wife to drop it. We separate. Father tells them to call if they ever need. Neighbors call the police. They come to collect the remains. Animal control does a half-assed job and puts down one dog as if it was just the one that did this. The neighbors don't really talk to us anymore, and we don't talk about what happened. Where I live, everyone just sort of pretends that the bad things never happened, or at least they accept that it happened and no longer want to discuss it ever again. That patch of woods though, I only went back a few times. It felt very oppressive being there, and the hair on my neck is always standing, for dogs are still always circling. They never attacked me, and I always took a rifle anyway, but it was not a good place. It was cursed or something for sure after that day. I forgot to add, the police determined that the girl was probably killed while on their property and drug away by the dogs. They found a blood trail leading back to the edge of their land and a juice pouch that she had been drinking. She was 10 years old and just out playing in the field. It makes me sad to think of. This happened to me around 10 years ago. I was waiting for the last train home around 1 a.m. on a Sunday night. The train finally arrives. I look right to the rest of the train while getting on the last wagon. I see no one getting on the train but a single other girl. The girl seemed to look exactly like me. I get on the train. I sit down, slightly appalled. The wagon I am in is completely empty. It's 30 minutes until the next stop. There is no reason to be moving inside the train. The doors to the other wagon opens up. 3 people enter my wagon. The girl in the center, accompanied by 2 men. Where did these men come from? I analyze the girl subtly. She looks exactly like me. Same clothes, same boots, same facial features, and long brown curly hair. I'm seriously thinking in my head, is this a clone of me? They avoid eye contact as if I didn't exist and stoically keep walking towards the very back end of the train. Why would they go all the way to the last bit? Nothing is there but a very small hall and an exit door. I freak out and start chanting Hindu prayers in my head. 15 minutes pass by. It's probably around 30 seconds before the stop. I stand up and walk towards the very back where those 3 went. There is no one there. Am I hallucinating? I get off the train. There are cabs in the queue. I have a bad feeling about the first cab. so I took the second one. I tell the cab driver what the hell just happened. He didn't charge me for the ride. The cab driver is a local. He adds that he never saw the other cab before. 2 weeks later, I read in the papers that a man has been caught, accused of driving around in a fake cab and linked to the disappearance of young women. The photo in the papers was the cab from 2 weeks ago. Fast forward 8 years later, I find a random article about seeing your doppelganger is an extremely negative omen of death. Okay, so I live in Ireland, and this happened 2 days ago. It was my first day of college. It's the end of the day. My bus home never arrives. I start walking down the long country roads to get back to my home. I have never actually been to this area of the country. It's about a 4-hour walk, maybe even more, just to get home. I am about 6 kilometers outside of town, Dunboyne. I get on top of a hill by the road. I just had to cut through the small town that I see for something to drink, maybe just to catch my breath. I cut through a field to reach the town. I come across a ditch with a small bridge. Looks kinda comfy. I am looking around. I am in the shade from the sunny day, so this spot was so lovely. I notice something on a tree. It's a pentagram. And beneath the pentagram is a dead badger. Oh God. I immediately head into the village. It's pretty small. There is one pub, a post office, and a shop. It's pretty rural. There is some old women standing in front of the houses that stare at me as I pass. I think nothing of it, but some men and a few kids also watch me as I progress down the street. I enter the shop. This odd elderly man welcomes me, but he watches every single thing I do in the shop. I ask him about any potential bus routes through the town. He tells me no. Damn it. I am really anxious, so I don't even bother to stop and rest. I buy some water and make my way down the road further until some guy stops his car and offers me a ride. I accept because I am pretty sick of the heat. He asks if I went through the village. I answer yes, and he says thank goodness he came across me. He says I should never walk alone through there ever again. I explain that the bus did not come. We chat for a while before reaching the main roads again. He drops me at a bus stop. He reminds me to avoid the village. I just say, okay. The bus arrives, and I finally make it home.